Hello and welcome or welcome back. My name is Dr. Vanessa Milagros, and today we're going to be talking about how to spot the red flags early on in dating. So if you're interested in that, make sure to subscribe, comment something down below. Let's get started. Okay, so now I'm going to put a little bit of a twist to this because instead of just talking about what the red flags are in dating, I'm actually going to do it based on the attachment styles. So I have a lot of videos on here about attachment styles, and I dive deeper into explaining what those are, how they impact us, all of those good things. So if you're interested in that, check them out. However, for today, let's sort of review some of the attachment styles so that you have a little bit of an understanding. And if you want more, check out those videos. So the first one is secure attachment style. And individuals with this attachment style are comfortable with closeness within the relationships. It doesn't scare them and it doesn't make them anxious. They practice healthy and open communication skills with their partners, and they trust and rely on their partners without being overly dependent on them, and vice versa. Individuals with an anxious attachment style, they tend to crave the closeness within their relationships, but they may also feel insecure about their partner's love for them. So whether they truly love them, and if so, how much. This leads to the fear of abandonment for them, and they may tend to exert overly attentive behaviors, especially when they may feel their partner pulling away from them. Avoidant attachment. Individuals with this attachment style tend to value their independence outside of the relationship, sometimes to the point where they avoid emotional closeness or emotional intimacy. They may come off as distant, maybe resistant to being committed or being in a committed relationship, and they may often feel suffocated in relationships. And the last is disorganized attachment style. Now this one is actually a mix between anxious and avoidant attachment styles because you fear closeness, but you also fear abandonment as well. And this often leads to unpredictable patterns and behaviors within their relationships. So I want you close, I don't want you to leave, but I also need my space and I don't want you to be here. You could see how that could be confusing for their partner. Now, this is not to label you, and it is not to say that if you have one attachment styles that you can't move up to a more secure attachment style. That's not what that means. However, it does show us a sort of blueprint to where we can easily say, okay, I closely relate to maybe a disorganized attachment styles in my romantic relationships, right? So now I know what I tend to go towards. However, do I want to stay within this attachment style? And if the answer is yes, then do you. If the answer is no, then you know what you would need to work on in order to become more secure, to benefit not only you, but your partner, your relationship thriving, all of these beautiful things and more. Now that we're aware of the attachment styles, let's talk about how they may show up as red flags in the dating phase. Red flags when dating an anxiously attached individual. 1, overly or very needy behaviors. Yes, even in dating. So if they constantly need reassurance, validation, this could indicate that there's an anxious attachment style here. However, I want you to focus on the keywords of constant, right? So maybe they're texting you, wanting to know where you are, what you're doing all day long, right? We're talking about constant and an excessive amount. We're not just saying if someone is asking for reassurance that you want to date them, or if someone is checking in on you. Those are two very different things. There's a difference between healthy and unhealthy. We're talking more about the excessive and the constant, which would be unhealthy. Number 2, jealousy and possessiveness. Now, I will just say right off the bat, if you're seeing this initially in the dating phase, then that's definitely a red flag. This could be if they get jealous of other people in your life, such as your friends, your family, your acquaintances in the dating phase. That's definitely a red flag. And the reason why it is because it signals an underlying fear for them of abandonment. So we know that with the anxious attachment style, there's a deep-rooted fear of abandonment. That jealousy and possessiveness can come out based on that fear. And the third one is moving too fast emotionally. So if there's an intense level of commitment early on, this is something to look out for. So maybe this is planning your whole future together even before you've started dating seriously. You'll probably see them rushing into certain aspects of the dating phase and skipping certain important aspects in order to feel more securely attached to you. And for you, it may feel overwhelming. Like, this is a lot. This is going too fast. This feels a little too intense. What about red flags in avoidantly attached partners? Number 1, keeping emotional distance. Now, we know that the boundaries are important and healthy separation and connectedness, especially in dating, is really important. But what you'll see is that those with an avoidant attachment style, they tend to be fairly present and focused on you at the beginning. They may appear charming and confident at first, which is great. But when things start to progress and their patterns of behaviors are different from when you first started dating, that's a clear sign as well, because they're emotionally distancing themselves slowly through their actions. Before, maybe they were texting you good morning every day, or maybe they were doing little things like I think of you presents, or maybe they were doing things like planning dates every once in a while and making sure that you knew that they were thinking about you. And then when things started to progress within the dating phase, they started to do less and less of that. So you'll usually feel like, hey, this is a little bit different. It's nothing major, right? You're not just running for the hills, ignoring my text. You're not just ghosting me. No, but it's little things that they start to withdraw on that they were very present and active on in the beginning. This could even look like dodging certain questions about their personal lives or keeping conversations very superficial. So no real depth to the conversations. Second is the avoidance of labels and commitments. So now if you've progressed within the dating phase where now you're moving into potentially considering girlfriend status, then for you, it may seem like a logical next step. For them, that is where the avoidance will definitely start to show because they will not want to put labels on things and it may seem very innocent, like let's not put too much pressure on this, let's not rush into things, let's not label anything, we are happy right now, aren't you content where we are right now, why do we need to put a label on it, right? So there will be excuses and reasons that may seem valid and potentially are, but it's rooted in the avoidant attachment that they have, and that's coming right up. And 3, disappearing, and a term we like to call breadcrumbing. Those with an avoidantly attached style may keep you at arm's length distance, right? So you can get close and you think you're making progress, but there's a hard stop for them. And part of this is in order to keep you interested enough to continue to stay or continue to come back, but they know what they're doing because our attachment styles are very, very strong. And sometimes we don't even recognize that we're operating in those attachment styles until we get called out for it or we do that internal work. The biggest indicator you'll see is that there's never any real commitment. So they may initiate contact with you and want to start conversations, but they'll never follow through with it. They may disappear for days, and this could be just not texting you back for a few days and then popping up out of nowhere and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I had this, I had that going on, when that was not the case beforehand. They always seem to make the time for you beforehand. And when they do pop back up, it's with very little accountability for the fact that they disappeared for however long they disappeared for. The breadcrumbing part is giving you bits and pieces so that you can stay, but never really fully committing. And that's the part where I want you to focus on to let you know if this is your red flag that you're seeing. Because sometimes we have to ask ourselves, like, am I making this up? Is this not weird? The patterns are off. It's not consistent. And so why am I feeling off? Listen to that feeling. Sometimes it's intuition. Sometimes it's experience from before letting you know, hey, maybe this is not a green flag. Maybe we need to look into this a little bit more. Or maybe we need to have a conversation, an honest conversation about this. And again, if the conversation does not include them taking any accountability or them being able to apologize or them being able to, most importantly, correct and change the behavior that is hurting you, then that is another red flag for you to consider. Now, you can have all the red flags lined up in a row for you and still say, but, and stay within these relationships and let it progress. That's fine. People do that all the time. It's not until you're ready to see, oh my gosh, all these red flags are catching up. I don't like this. This is now really in my face and now I have to do something about it. Now I cannot stay. It's okay. Everybody has their own journey. Some people see one red flag and they're out. And I'm like, okay, we all have some sort of baggage. So let's not run on the first red flag. This may mean some avoidant attachment for you, but we'll work through that. So we all have something. Don't just ride off for one thing that you see and run for the hills. However, don't stay when you have 30 red flags in front of you. There's an in-between, right? And it depends on if the person is worth it to you, if the relationship is worth it to you, to work on those things, because people have done that as well. And what about red flags in disorganized attachment styles? With this one, you'll see hot and cold behaviors. I'm in this, but I'm not. One moment they're affectionate and close and with you and you feel great, and then the next minute they're distant, they disappeared, you don't know what's happening with them. This will leave you feeling like you are on a roller coaster and you may feel emotionally and mentally exhausted by this. So keep note of that because that could be pointing to this red flag. 2, there's a history of unstable relationships in the past for them. So remember, the gist of this is that they struggle with actually having and creating secure relationships, partially because of the back and forth and their mixed feelings about their attachment to that partner. So if you've noticed that they've had a lot of almost relationships, right? Like almost dated, we almost moved in together, we almost got married, but never went through, that's a clear sign. Maybe when people tend to get close, they find fault with them and then they're out. Or maybe they were really attentive at first and then just weren't. And they don't know why it didn't work out. It just didn't. And 3, there's a difficulty with being vulnerable within the relationship. So they may struggle to open up and share part of their personal life and experiences with you, even if you've made it a safe space to do so for them. Maybe they go towards humor to deflect serious or emotionally driven conversations. And I want to point out that the emotional avoidance tendencies, this is masking fears within them as well, similar to the other insecure attachment styles. And it's usually rooted in a history of them experiencing past hurts, whether it was past hurts in romantic relationships, past hurts in family or friendship relationships, coworker acquaintances. There's a history of being hurt, and that fear is there for them. Similar to the fear of abandonment when it comes to an anxiously attached person, a disorganized attachment individual does have those fears of not getting hurt again. That's where the mixed feelings of, I want you close, but I want you far and I don't want you too close come into play. But at the end of the day, you're going to end up feeling confused, unsure, like you're going back and forth. Maybe you see them committed one time and then you see them uncommitted and fearful the next, and you're just not sure where you stand or what to do. Phew. Now that we've been through those points, let's talk about what to do if this is you, or if you're dating someone who has one of these insecure attachment styles, what you can do. Let's talk about it. The first is to secure your own attachment style first. We cannot point the finger without pointing 3 back. I point to you, I have 3 fingers pointing right back to me. Work on yourself first. What is your attachment style? Are you working on these things? Or are you ignoring them and hyper-focusing on your partner's attachment styles? See, we want to understand their attachment styles, but we don't want to make it our identity. We don't want to change everything about how we move, how we act, how we talk, how we view the world just based on someone else's attachment style. We don't want to do that. So first, analyze what your attachment style is, where you need to improve, and work towards the goal would be a more secure attachment style for yourself first. You can do this through your friendships. You can do this through your family relationships, right? So start there. The next is to be direct and practice that open communication that you would want from your partner. Don't be afraid to ask someone what they want from the relationship. What is it that they're looking for? What are their expectations? Where are they at within their self-healing journey? And notice if they're comfortable talking to you about this, or if they try to avoid or dodge your questions. Next, set healthy boundaries. The healthiest relationships thrive on the respect for one another within the relationship. I'm going to be there for you. I know you're going to be there for me. And I know that we're going to respect each other's boundaries. If we say this is a no, it's a no. And there's no questions about it. It's no, well, why is it a no? Well, how can we change that no? Healthy relationships do not try to push their partner's boundaries. They may not understand it, but they respect and love and care for their partner enough to just abide by it. And the boundaries that are set are healthy. They wouldn't be unhealthy boundaries. And next is to take your time. There's no need to rush. There's no need to sprint to the finish line. It's okay to take your time to get to know the person you're talking to and you're dating, to get to know what their interests are, what their experiences are, what their beliefs are, and for them to do the same with you. Don't feel like you have to rush. And if they are pushing you to feel rushed, that could be a red flag as well. And lastly is to start therapy if you need it. Doesn't necessarily have to be couples therapy, especially if you're just dating, but it could be your own individual therapy. Remember, when you get into relationships, that will show you things about yourself that you're like, oh, I might need to start therapy. I didn't know that was there. Because your friendships don't get it out of you. Your coworkers don't get it out of you. Acquaintances aren't doing that. Sometimes family will. However, relationships show us who we are during the bad times, the good times, and they show us things about ourselves that we either can ignore or take accountability for and start to work on. Therapy is a great resource for that. Thank you so much for being here. If you've learned something today, comment down below. Let me know any questions you have. And if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and like, and I will see you next time. Take care.